This show is listener supported. You can join us and help our show grow to support more adoptees by going to adopteeson.com/partner. You are listening to Adoptees On, the podcast where adoptees discuss the adoption experience. This is episode 155. I'm your host, Haley Radke. Welcome, friends. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Today's show is a little different because I asked one of my dearest friends to come and celebrate a milestone moment with us. Let's listen in. I'm so pleased to welcome to Adoptees On. Welcome back to Adoptees On, Reshma McClintock. Welcome, Reshma.
Hi, Haley. Thanks for having me again.
I'm so excited because you're here to celebrate with me.
I am here to celebrate with you. This is going to be a party we are going to get down. Virtually.
Okay.
It's a thing now.
Okay, so we are celebrating a little late, but that's okay. Better late than never. The Adoptees On podcast has reached 500,000 downloads, which is crazy.
Okay, let's do that thing where we pause for just a minute and take in 500,000 downloads. 500,000 downloads.
Okay, so is it okay if I tell an embarrassing story about you?
Please. I mean, why else have I come here?
No, okay, so you guys, Raj is like one of my best friends, and I told her this milestone was coming, and I was really excited, and so she secretly sent me a gift, and it literally happened to arrive on the day that I hit 500,000 downloads, which was bananas. And I was sitting at our breakfast table when it happened. I was playing Uno with Isaiah right before we went to school, and I was just refreshing my phone so I could get the screenshot. Anyway, I sent the screenshot to Resh and waited later in the day, got a delivery at the door, and I was like, oh my goodness, what's happening? And she sent me balloons. But what came in the box was 50K.
1510 and 1K.
And so I was so sweet, and I blew them up, but I effed up the K. These are like these, foil balloons that you see you'll see it in the picture. You'll see it I'm going to use it as my show art. Okay. So just look in your cover art in the podcast app, wherever you're listening, and you'll see the picture of me with these balloons. But I messed up the K because you put these little straws in and you blow in, and I just like busted right through. So anyway, I went to Party City and I got the missing 0 and the K, and I wasn't going to tell her because I was embarrassed that I don't know. I didn't want to embarrass you.
You were embarrassed for me.
I was embarrassed for you.
Because you thought that I was an idiot. It's okay. It's fair.
No, okay. So then, when I sent her the picture, it wasn't all blue. There was some silver.
I was so proud of myself, okay, because I found the 500K in blue. And I was like, it's one of her colors. This is amazing. I love them. I've never, right? It's exactly the color.
Yep.
And I've never seen them in blue before. I was planning on getting gold, and then I found the blue. I was so happy. Now, let me just tell you something really quick. I checked 6 to 7 times to make sure that I picked 2 zeros. I checked it like 100 times to make sure there were 2 zeros. And so when you said that you only got 1510 and 1K, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Actually, that's not what I said, but I'm not going to say what I said.
It's so funny because in the box I was like searching. Maybe it's a tiny little Amazon, and I was like, there's got to be the other 0 here. It's not here. But there was a slip that said, we've only shipped part of your order.
Yes. So good. This is the part of the story I've been waiting to get to.
Okay.
Because yes, the other 0 was coming. It was proof that I did, in fact, check and make sure that I clicked 2 zeros for 500K.
What's proof is that you're about to keep me so humble, because at some point in time in the next few weeks, I'm just going to get a 0 delivered to me.
No. They canceled it.
No.
I don't think the 0's coming. So that's the last part of the story is that like a day later, 2 days later, I got an email that said, we've refunded your $6.50 because the other zero isn't going to make it in time.
I was waiting
no.
for my zero to just be like, listen, Haley, you hit $500,000, but like you're still a zero.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, that would have been a real boost. Too funny. But what did I tell you? Originally, I told you when I found out that the last zero was still on its way, I said, well, when you hit 1 million, I'll only have to send 5 zeros. Now you can hold on to that one. So anyway, as it turns out, when you hit 1 million in, just a few short months, I'm sure.
Oh,
when
yeah.
you do hit 1 million, I'll have to get all 6 zeros.
Okay.
So,
that
but it's okay.
good.
I'm willing to spend the money.
Well, I appreciate that so much. Okay, I want to tell you a couple things. When I launched in July of 2016. So July 1st was like my official launch date. But at the time, Apple Podcasts wouldn't give you a specific date that your show would go live. Now, standard practice when you have a new podcast, you do a little intro and you put it up there. And then whenever it's up, then you're like, okay, good. Now it's live. Now I can promote it, put up a real episode, all that. So I went through my screenshots the other night, which is just, it's not a good idea. If you want to feel good about yourself, just look at all the things you've screenshot. But I looked and I had screenshot on July 4th. By then, I had 300 downloads. And I remember showing that to Nick and being so excited and like, oh my gosh, that was so crazy. And then I hit 10,000 downloads February 2017. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is such a huge milestone, like 10,000, like picture 10,000 people, and here we are. It's 500,000, which is...
Did you ever think you'd get here?
No.
You didn't think so?
No.
So you would see the numbers going up occasionally as you would check and you'd hit different milestones. But actually, I'm just thinking about how many milestones you went through to get to 500,000. I mean, you think 10,000, then you think 15, and the 17 even is, everything's a big deal. And so I'm guessing you've watched yourself go in increments.
Yeah, and I mean, I am in a lot of different groups with other podcasters who are very indie niche, similar to me. And when they hear about my numbers, they're often like, whoa, that's amazing, because it's unusual. Podcasting, there's so many podcasts. There's just tons and tons of them. And it's unusual to have that many downloads. The stats, as far as I know, I listen to Libsyn. They're my podcast host, and they host about a quarter of all the podcasts that are available in Apple Podcasts. And they say that about 80% of shows get around 150 downloads an episode. So it takes a long time to add up to something like 500,000 for those kind of numbers. So yeah, I didn't really expect it. And after a while, you're just producing the show, making sure you're making good content. And like I said, I'll admit, I used to check religiously. And in those first few days, it's just like refresh. Did I get one more? And now I just go post the show. I don't even look often at the numbers.
Well, and the numbers are, an affirmation. The numbers are not just numbers, they're people. And we know that the show has been wildly successful apart from the numbers, just in transforming the lives of so many adopted people and opening the eyes of so many non-adopted people. And because of that, you stop and think all of those numbers represent an individual person. And then even how that webs out, right? Like, how many people did they talk to about the show? How many people have they shared with, even if they just shared the information? And even if that person didn't listen, your reach is much broader than really I think you can even fathom. And that is so exciting. And so I know you go through phases where you look at the statistics and you become obsessed. And then you kind of just do the job that you have been doing so beautifully for the last few years. And, this is so exciting. I cannot tell you, just to sound so cheesy, how honored I am that I get to celebrate with you. As a personal friend, I'm so just in awe of you so frequently. And also as someone in the adoptee movement, as someone who's an adopted person who stood up and said, I am not going to allow the world to speak for me any longer. And the way that you have done that so beautifully and so powerfully I am so proud of you. And I can't believe I'm, someone who gets to celebrate with you. And that is, it's really worth noting. It is worth the pause. It's worth the minute to take the mismatched balloons and, raise them in the air and say a cheer and just soak it all in. I hope you're really able to soak in what you've accomplished so far, and that this will just continue to catapult you forward. And I can't really even fathom where you would go. At one point, you could never have imagined being where you are now. And if you sit with that for a minute, oh my goodness, imagine where you'll go next. It's really exciting.
I have goosebumps you talking about that. I was just asking Nick the other day because he's had a transition in work, and his boss resigned and there's a new boss, and I was like, oh, how do you picture yourself like in 5 years? You're going to do the same job? And then he asked me the same, and I was like, oh my goodness, will I still be podcasting in 5 years? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to know.
It is hard to know. Another cool thing that I've shared before I've hit these milestones before, or on birthday moments. I might post on Instagram what the current stats are, just because I think it's fun and I think people are interested to see. Mm-hmm. But the show's been downloaded in over 144 countries.
Wow.
Which is it's not quite all of them. It's like 3/4 of them.
Yes, worth noting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I think there's something real significant there. Adoptees are scattered through the entire world. Now, not necessarily all English speaking, of course. That's, North American centric thinking in my head. But yeah, I think that's really, really neat. And the other cool thing I wanted to tell you is the top 10 countries that regularly listen.
Yes,
okay.
I want to hear this.
Okay, so of course, number 1 is the United States. 70% of my listeners are in the U.S.
The U.S. has to be first at everything.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
And then I go to my country. Did you know I'm Canadian? Some of my listeners don't know that. I'm in Canada, you guys. So
this is international here.
Yes. 6% of my listeners are Canadian. Mm. And then we go to the UK, Australia. They're both at 4% each. And then Ireland, Germany, New Zealand, France, Sweden, and South Africa.
Oh, wow. That is very cool.
Yes.
That is so, so significant.
I love that. And I've interviewed adoptees, I think, in 8 different countries, and maybe adoptees adopted from probably only a dozen countries. Mm. When I started out podcasting, there was only a couple of other adoptee podcasts, and one of them strictly focused on international adoptees, and the host was an international adoptee himself. And so I really was like, oh, that's your space. Like, I don't want to, and that show has paused, and we call it pod fading as podcasters, pod fading. So that doesn't mean he won't come back, but so I've had lots of asks for international adoptees to share, and so I started doing that a little further on in my podcasting journey. But yeah, it's really incredible the amount of lives touched by adoption all over the world.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, as a transracial international adoptee, as a person of color, I appreciate that you at one point had paused to say, is that my space? Is someone else filling that space? Obviously. However, I will say, because I've had the opportunity to be on your show a few times and listen to multiple transracial international adoptees, how powerful it is. And one of the things that you do so well, which I know you are frequently complimented on, although you wouldn't share that yourself, but is that you are so good at listening and elevating voices. And so you're not like, oh, let me provide you with this platform. You're like, I'm here to listen. I want you to be able to share because I want to learn, because I want to know. And I just appreciate the way that you do that. It's a tricky thing, especially in today's cultural and political climate. But I think it's something you do really well. And it's something you've learned about as you've gone, as you've grown, and as you've listened. And I think that's really, it's just something that I appreciate. Not that you would, I just know you so well. So I know you would never be like, well, I provide a platform for, people of all colors and race, right? Like it's not about that. It's about the education. It's about the opportunity for all of us to learn from people of different cultures and backgrounds and different experiences. And you so well provide that platform without talking over your guest and just allowing them to share and asking all the right questions so that we can all learn together. And it's just, I mean, it's just really, I don't know, it's a very unique thing that you're able to do so well.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. And I do try very hard to come into each interview just in a space of learning, posture of learning. I mean, we've heard enough podcasts where the host tries to mansplain or, all of those kinds of things.
Right.
And this is not the place for that, for sure.
Yeah.
I heard that you might have a couple questions for me, and that makes me feel nervous, but I'm okay.
Can I get like a drum roll or something? I should have planned like a sound effect, drum roll something, because this is like the moment that I've been waiting for, is to ask you questions on air. We've gone back and forth a little bit a few times, but you told me that I could basically ask you whatever I want, and I appreciate that. It's one of the things I love about you.
I don't think I said that, but okay.
Listen, we're here. Let's just go with it.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, you didn't say that. That's not true. You didn't say I can ask you whatever I want. But
I feel like you're just trying to get like me to acknowledge permission ahead of some invasive questions.
Oh, no. I'm not looking for permission. I've learned a long time ago it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So I'm kidding. I want to know, there's a lot of people in the adoptee community, in the adoption community, will listen to your show, obviously. A lot of people use the word transformative when they talk about this show, that this show has been transformative in their lives, that this show has made them feel less alone, that this show, Anne Heffron, our good friend, has frequently said that in many ways this show saved her life and had great influence, I should say, in saving her life. And a lot of us listen to you and think, wow, I listen to you and your guests rather and think, wow, where else could I have learned this information? This is truly transformative. It's the first time I've heard this specific thing stated in this specific way, and I have a better understanding of adoptees and their lives and their experiences. And it has been so incredibly transformative for so many people. I want to know, for you personally, in what ways has it been transformative for you, Haley Radke, adopted person, not Haley Radke, podcaster, interviewer, professionally? I want to know personally, what has that been like for you? In what ways has it transformed you?
Okay, that feels like just a huge question, and it really is true that it has transformed me. And I could answer the professional one. You said not to, but I feel like I've gained a lot of confidence, and am a lot. You wouldn't know it now, but I feel like I'm a lot more of a polished speaker. Editing is like magical, but personally, I feel like after every episode where I record with someone, I think, wow, here's 10 more things I need to talk about with my psychologist. Mm-hmm. It's really shaped me to look at my own issues deeper. Things that I had covered up, was coping with, things that I had hidden. And the more my guests share about the courageous steps they've taken to find healing from a variety of different ways that they feel adoption has impacted them, the more I feel brave enough to be like, okay, maybe this is the next thing I can talk about with my psychologist. Truly, personally, I've grown a ton from listening to other people, and it also has really humbled me. Oh God, I'm fine. It really truly has humbled me. The honor it is to listen to people's stories. Sometimes they haven't shared them before, and I try and be really careful with that. I try and make sure that guests are ready to talk about things publicly. We've seen so many people overshare things and can't reel it back in once it's out there. We've seen so many young adoptees especially you've had personal experience with this. I think I'm not oversharing for you, but had become a poster child for adoption in youth and paraded around and, oh my gosh, adoption's so amazing. Look, it saved my life.
Absolutely.
So there's a cost of that. So I try and really walk a fine line of not asking someone to overshare in that way, but the trust they put in me with sharing things sometimes for the first time is just like, it's so humbling. Like, how am I, a stranger, able to hear this really deep things that are coming just from the bottom of your heart, and then you're trusting not just me, but my listeners. So yeah, I've grown a lot and learned a lot, and trust me, there is no one who's been more impacted by the show than me.
Wow, that is a really, really fascinating statement. Interesting. Yeah, that you've been the most. I guess what I really appreciate about what you had to say is that I think that in adoption land, and we all do this, and you and I've talked about this before. There's kind of like these pedestals that we put different adoptees on. There's kind of a rotation, right? It's like we see after you've been in adoption land for a long time, you kind of see, oh, these are the new faces. Oh, this is the new, this is the new person, and that's not necessarily a negative thing. There's new people coming up and sharing all the time, and I love that. And I talk about that frequently about the seasons, right? Like we're in a different season. I'm in a season of, no, not me, but this is just an example. Surely not me, but sometimes I have before had seasons of incredible productivity. And really, this is my moment. This is my season. This is my time. I'm going to be one of the people out there sharing and doing a lot of work and putting a lot of effort out there, which I appreciate and love, that we can kind of come and go, because for me, it's about taking breaks and for my own family's sake, or my, for whatever reason, right? Different seasons for different reasons. However, what I appreciate is that you're not putting yourself on a pedestal. I think that's a really important thing for us as adopted people to note. And you just demonstrated that so well, because I think a lot of people will look at you and be like, oh, Haley, I want to get to where she is. Not professionally. Well, a lot of people think that too. But I just mean thinking, oh, well, she clearly has it together. She's clearly got things sorted out and figured out emotionally as it pertains to adoption and all of that because of where she is. And the reality is, we shouldn't be trying to attain to get to where anybody else is. It's all about our own personal journey. And I just appreciate that you're willing to say, of course I haven't arrived. And there is no arrival destination, but that you're constantly working on yourself and discovering new ways that you can learn and grow and new things that you need to address. I find that with your show, of course, and so many other people do. But to know that the host is like, I'm here to learn. I am here to grow personally in my own journey with my psychologist, with my therapist, with my family, as it pertains to reunion or whatever the different specific areas are. I think that's a really bold statement that you made, that is one of the ways that it's transformed you, is that you walk away, with 10 things or so to really think about and work on. I think that's a really powerful statement. And again, not to say that you aren't someone that people should look up to. I absolutely believe you are, but that is one of the reasons, not because you've arrived, but because you're working through all of the things that you need to work through on this journey.
I think you're talking me up too much.
Well, truly, I'm not meaning to. That's not my intention.
Okay.
I'm not trying to flatter you.
Okay.
I just really, so I know you because I know where you're going. I know. I just think that it's a powerful thing that you can say that, because I think a lot of people in your position with your kind of success wouldn't necessarily say, I am still learning every day. And in the show that you happen to provide and host and curate, that it is even benefiting you in your journey on your path. That it's not like, I've arrived, so I'm going to host this podcast so other people can get to where I am. That's not what it's about. Mm-hmm. It's about collectively growing in our own paths and our own journey. So I think that's really wonderful.
That's one thing I have felt fearful of with the show, is we talk about a lot of hard things, and a lot of adopted people are always being accused of being so negative, and if we're critical at all of adoption. And so I don't want us to stay stuck in the bad experiences. And so it's so important to me that we do seek healing and growing ourselves. And like, if I'm not going to model that, I mean, I'm a complete hypocrite. So I really do think it's important for us to be working on that. And I hope that with the ways I have, like the healing series, and I have therapists on, and some of the questions of the guests, like sometimes I ask guests, like, what have you been learning in therapy? And like, is there a question I can ask you that you can kind of teach us from? Because I want them to give an opportunity to be like, well, this is where I came from, but here's all the things I've kind of worked on, because they're examples for us as well. It really is. It's so important to not stay stuck. And that's just a human thing, right?
Right. Right. That really is. I love that. I think, you've had so many good, I couldn't even start to list, but therapists on who talk about that a lot, about them being in their own journey also. Like they want to help people, obviously meet them where they are, but that they're also doing their own personal work. And I think just in general, across the board, outside adoption, we all have to be doing the work, on ourselves. And that's, where we flourish, really.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem is just like what you said, the dangerous territory is when we get stuck.
Yeah.
And there's no growth. So I just appreciate looking at someone like you, where I think, professionally you've had this success. It's just remarkable what you've done, that you created out of nothing without any experience, that the fruit that you have produced is just really extraordinary. And to hear from someone, frankly, at your level, that you are still learning and listening and all the benefits that you personally find. I love that. So thank you for answering that question. I know that was a lot.
Let's just talk about me some more. That's just my favorite.
I know that's your favorite thing. Okay, so let's see. I wanted to know, what is your favorite part of the show? What is your favorite aspect of doing the show? And I mean that, I've heard you say, I know you love, you've said it to me many times, and I love hearing it from you every time, that people will share their stories with you is so powerful. What do you love about Adoptees On? If you can you pull yourself out of it at all? Are you able to separate yourself at all from Adoptees On and say, this is what I love about Adoptees On?
Oh my goodness. That's tricky.
Mm-hmm.
That's tricky. I was a podcast listener for a decade before I started this show. So when podcasts were starting, so I have listened to podcasts for years and years and years. And I structured the show in a way that was my favorite format. And I think some of my favorite moments of the podcast itself, each episode, are the last couple questions that come right before recommended resources. So it's always the questions that are wrapping up the interview. This is their last chance to share with the listeners, like some powerful thing that has impacted them. Or I feel like those are the moments that are like the penultimate, I don't know, because we wrap up with recommended resources, and I'm usually sharing, something. If it's an author, I'm usually sharing about their book, and they're going to promo something else, and that's great too. But it's just like those moments right before, and I feel like two guests often relax by recommended resources, so they're like comfortable at that point and share some like pretty amazing things. So I feel like those last couple questions are my favorite usually.
Oh, I love that. That's good to know. Now the pressure's on for the future. No, I'm kidding. For future interviewees.
Yeah. Watch out. Question 7. That's one.
Right. Yeah. Okay, my last question for you is this. If I'm new to Adoptees On and I were jumping in and it's like, whoa, she's had 500,000 downloads, 500,000 downloads. How many episodes could she have? How could I ever jump in and get caught up and listen and know what this show is all about? First, I'd like to know, how many episodes do you have, quickly?
This is going to be episode 155.
Love it. 155 episodes. So if I'm someone coming in and there are 155 episodes, could you, I'm not asking you to pick your favorite child or anything here, but could you pick a number, a reasonable number of episodes that you would recommend to give someone a crash course in Adoptees On, and frankly, the host, who you are, so that, because that's a huge part of the show. But are there a certain number of episodes that you could get to give someone a crash course on Adoptees On? And is that something you could kind of include in the show notes for this episode?
Okay, this was a big ask, and thank goodness Reshma did kind of warn me about this question. Well, I'm going to separate into two. Okay, so if you want to get to know me a little better and you haven't binged all the episodes, which some of you say you do, just a few days' time, which is too many. That is too many hours of me talking. Don't do that. If you want to get to know me a little bit better, I actually share my story on episode 13. And it's kind of a long episode. We start off with a couple different things. So if you just want to hear my story, I start around the 28-minute mark of that episode. And that is about my failed reunion with my first mother. And then, unusually, the other two episodes where you could learn a little bit more about me, these are some of the only episodes I have that are with a guest who's not adopted, but they are people that are in my life. And so I have an episode 58 is with my husband, and he talks about what it's like being married to an adoptee. So if you want more dirt on me, hit that one up. Nick shares all the all the dirt. There's not that much dirt. And then the third one is an episode that I feel is quite controversial. I have had feedback on both sides of that fence. It's very polarizing. So it's episode 86, and I actually interview my biological father's wife. And it's called I Call Her Mom, because I call her mom. And she shares what reunion was like for her. And it's a challenging listen, but it gives you a good perspective of how our reunion went. So those are the pieces where if you want to get to know me more, and if you have people in your life that, are around you, you probably do, and the impact that your presence might have in their life, you might see some of that in these.
I just wrote them down too because I've listened to all of those, but I'm going back to re-listen.
Okay, great. Now, the other ones, that's so hard. It's really, really tough to pick. What I did is I wrote down the top 3 downloaded shows. And the first one is an episode I did with Carrie. It is episode number 1. Carrie Cahill Mulligan. She is my co-host most of the time on Adoptees Off Script, which is the Patreon-only show that I also do weekly. Did you know I have 2 podcasts every week? Oh my gosh, Resh, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's amazing.
So if you need to hear me talk more, I talk a lot more on that one than I do on my own podcast here. But Carrie shares about her reunion, and we'd really go back and forth. This was much more a back and forth conversation than what you're used to now. Is really not hearing too much of me. My editor, I don't know, she might roll her eyes at this, but this is too many secrets. Sometimes I get her to cut out my questions so that the guest can seem like they're just keep talking and they have another thought and they go on to a different topic, because I don't want it to be about me.
Wow,
So
I love that.
this is a little bit rougher, but and the sound, everything, we're a lot more professional around here.
I mean, episode 1 and you're on 155. We can have grace
there
for
you
that.
go. There's some grace. The second most downloaded one, I wonder if you're going to be surprised by this. It's episode 128, and it's with Blake Gibbons.
Oh, I love Blake Gibbons.
So if you want to hear about adoptee advocacy and the challenges in that space, and if you want to be thinking about ethics and all the complicated things that come with adoption and advocacy, this is the one to listen to.
Blake makes my head hurt in the best way.
Yes.
Because they are so smart and wise and kind and energetic and all the good things. So
That's right. That's
yay,
right.
Blake.
I agree. The third episode is third most downloaded is an episode with a therapist we've had on the show multiple times, Pam Cordano. But this episode is episode 85, and she asked her 2 adult daughters to come and share what it's like to have an adoptee as their mother.
Okay, how have I not heard that one? Okay, I got to write that down too. 85.
So if you want to talk about putting yourself out there and putting yourself on possible blast and sharing our dirty laundry, that is an episode. It is amazing. It's one of the most powerful, and that's why I think it's one of the most downloaded. Who gets to listen in on that kind of conversation? Like who?
Wow. Yeah, I haven't listened to that episode, and I'm going to do that today.
Okay.
That is wonderful.
So there's a bunch of different series. I used to do did the reunion series, Adoptees in Addiction, Adoptees in Relationships, Healing Through Creativity, and the Healing series continues with all the therapist interviews. So all of those are linked on adopteeson.com. And I mean, I can't pick a favorite. But I do think if what you're struggling with the most right now is relationships, and that's number one thing that people will say to me, then listen to that series, and I think you'll get a lot from it.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing those. I think that it can be really overwhelming to come into a show with 500,000 downloads and 155 episodes and think, whoa, where do I even start? So I think that's a really wonderful tool to kind of have as a jumping off point. What I'm certain of is that as soon as anybody listens to any one, two, or all of those episodes, they're going to want to go back to the beginning and have a Haley binge. So yeah, I think that I imagine that that'll just be all that people need to get sucked in, because there's just so much goodness. I mean, when you really think about what those 500,000 downloads entail, like the knowledge and wisdom and emotions and experiences shared in each of those episodes and downloads and how they must impact people, it's really kind of like the, mind blown emoji. It's like,
Totally.
It's a lot to take in.
Thank you for grilling me. Thank you for interviewing me. I know she could have asked a lot for the dirt, but there isn't any.
I'm selfish. I like to keep those for myself.
Oh, it's private.
That's for Vox.
It's for Vox or blackmail later down the road. Yeah.
Well,
right.
And yours can be that someday you'll interview my daughter. Right?
Only when she's an adult.
Cordano.
Only when she's an adult and she can consent to that.
Yes. No, I'm not as brave as Pam Cordano.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, she's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap up with recommended resources, but first I'm going to tell you the 5 things I've learned after 500,000 downloads. So number 5, we're going to count up to the top. Number 5 is that internet friendships are really real. And the connections that I've made online are so true and can be deeper sometimes than some of my in-person friendships. The friends I've made on the Patreon Facebook group, DMs on Instagram, through emails people have sent me. It's really special, and I kind of don't have words for it, and including my friendship with you. It's pretty amazing the level adoptees can go to with understanding each other right away. And, I think sometimes internet friendships get a bad rap. Is that really like a thing? And it is. It's a real thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Number 4, something I mentioned kind of a little bit earlier, the experience of being adopted and being human. This is going to sound like obvious, but it's absolutely tangled together and meshed. I have multiple listeners, you might not know this, that don't have a connection whatsoever to adoption. And they learn so much from our stories. And I think that the pain, the trauma that we've been through from adoption leads a lot of us to seek healing, like we talked about earlier. And it's actually really inspiring for others, even outside of our community, to hear. And I'm really proud of that for us as adoptees speaking up, that we can impact people even outside of adoptee land. Mm-hmm. Okay, number 3 is that adopted people are very generous. I right now actually have over 150 monthly supporters, and they keep the lights on here. They keep my editor paid, and they keep the podcast free and available to anyone who needs support. And I see some of those same people giving to other adoptee podcasters, adoptee Kickstarters, other adoptee Patreons that are doing art, writing, you name it. They are willing to put their money where they think the resources need to be made, and they are helping impact their community by doing that. And so I thank you for your generosity and your willingness to do that, and I see it, and it's amazing.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, number 2, adopted people can be extremely passionate about our fights for original birth certificates, for citizenship, for family preservation. Oh my word. Have we seen the people doing the work in these areas? Wow. I don't even know how much more I can speak on that point. I think it's evident to me. It should be evident to you if you've listened to any number of these podcasts. The passion, the drive, the fire in some of these advocates, it is awe-inspiring. I don't know how they do it. It's amazing. And like, we are cheering you on. Okay?
Yeah, that's amazing. And so true.
Okay, number 1. I think this is my second time crying, so I'm okay. On this episode. Okay, this is not new information, but it's the most important. Adoptee voices matter. And when you create a place of safety and are willing to be vulnerable with your own story, there's something really magical that happens between us, myself, my guests, with you listening. You get to listen and feel like you're sitting with us, and truly you are, because my office is surrounded with your words, the books you've written and sent to me. I'm looking at a wall filled with cards and letters. I have art you've made for me. Embroidery, paintings. My purse, 2 of my purses are made by adoptees. I have a mug fired in a kiln that is by an adoptee. All of these things surround my office and surround me while I'm talking to guests. And it's a constant reminder that your voices matter, no matter how they're expressed. If I hear your voice and we're sharing them audibly with listeners, or I'm seeing your words and your art, your creations, the show has turned into my love letter back to you, to adopted people. And I just want to remind you that you're not alone. Your voice matters, and it matters so much to me. Okay, that's it.
Oh my gosh, I am wrecked. Haley, I just want to say on behalf of adopted people who love and appreciate you, who listen to your show, who've seen your work, who've read the things you've written, who've been impacted by anything that you have done for our community, thank you. I know that that is not what you're looking for here. We didn't discuss this, but I just want you to know how thankful we collectively as a community are for you and for your work, and for how deeply you love our community and how committed you are to it. So thank you for elevating adoptee voices. I just couldn't thank you enough.
Thank you. Okay, I'm supposed to be the one that's like ready with the transition voice. So let's do a recommended resource. No, seriously, thank you. I appreciate that. And I know that Adoptees On is appreciated and loved. And like I said, I have letters from people. Did you know you can send me letters? I have a P.O. box on my website, and I love getting cards, and it's really fun. My boys love it. Where's the stamp from?
I love that. That's great. I want to add one thing really quickly. Sorry, I'm going off. I'm going rogue.
Okay.
Everybody brace yourselves.
Okay.
I just also want to say your show has also been the catalyst for so many other adoptee organizations or websites or podcasts. I know because I get to talk to you personally how many adoptees have consulted you before starting their own podcasts. You're very quiet and very humble about that, but you're also very gracious with sharing the space and acknowledging that there is room for all of us to do our own individual work, even if it's along the same lines of something that someone is already doing, that there is space for all of us. So I think that's a really powerful, important thing, that your success has also a part of that success, a part of those 500,000 downloads is that you have helped other people build their own dream, right? Of elevating adoptee voices in their own way, on their own podcast, on their own website, in their own book, whatever it looks like for them, that you have, the Adoptees On has been a catalyst for that. And that is really, really important to acknowledge, especially as you go into recommended resources. See, look, there's a good transition. Because that's one of the other really powerful things you do is elevating adoptees, not just who you're interviewing, but other resources in our community.
Thank you for acknowledging that. I'm laughing because Reshma knows good and well I do not like compliments or being any of those things. Makes me very uncomfortable. I'm fine. Okay, let's do
like the 16th time you've said I'm fine.
I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. There's a terrible acronym for that, and that is what I am.
Oh, I think
you can
I know
look
that.
it up. You can look it up on Google. I was going to say Urban Dictionary, but don't do that. I don't. If it's really gross and terrible, I don't mean that. I just mean like you're not really fine, but you're fine. Okay. Well, you know what? Since you brought that up, I know there are over 35 other adoptee-run podcasts. Did you know that number was that high?
I did not.
Okay.
No clue.
Those are the ones that I have been watching and seeing grow over the years. The first one that I know of was started in 2016, and that's The Rambler. I actually had Mike McDonald on the show a long ways back, but he was the first one that I know of. And shortly after that, April Dinwiddie started Born in June, Raised in April in February of 2016, and I started July 1st of 2016. So 2016 was a big year for adoptee podcasts, and I've recommended many of them on the show before. And if you're looking for more adoptee podcasts, just search them out. They are out there for sure. The second thing that I should shout out is Leslie Johnson. She is an adoptee therapist who has been on the podcast a number of times. She was my very first healing series therapist that I had as a guest, and I don't even know how many times she's been on. It's close to 10, I would guess.
I love Leslie.
Yeah, she is amazing. I've met her in person
amazing.
before. She's just as delightful in person. And
Yes.
oh my word, the feedback I get from people that have been her clients, it's like top notch. She has just launched a course just for us, for adult adoptees. It's pretty incredible. I trust her. I know her expertise. She's worked in this field for a number of years, and she is up to date on all the things trauma related. So I haven't personally been through this course, but what I'm saying to you is I can endorse it because I know Leslie and I endorse her. Mm-hmm. The course is called Come Out of the Fog and Into Your Life, Rewire Your Brain for Resilience and Joy, a 6-week course for adult adoptees. Now, the time we're recording this, it's going to start right away next week. But if you go to askadoption.com, you can find out how to register. And if you have already missed this round, I'm sure she's going to be doing it again. And I'm sure there's details there of how you can sign up and be notified the next time she's running it. So please go and do that if that sounds like something that would be important for you. We talked all through this episode about how important healing is. And if you've connected with Leslie in some of the healing series episodes that she's done, then you probably know that this might be a good fit for you. So if you sign up, let me know. I want to hear about it. I want to hear if it's something I should sign up for in my spare time.
Yeah.
Honestly, if it wasn't pandemic times and I wasn't concerned my kids would be home again with me any day now, I would be signing up this round, but I'm going to wait, I think. That's my recommended resource.
I love it. I love Leslie. I'm on board.
All right. Well, Reshma, we've talked a lot about me today, but you are the creator of Dear Adoption, a producer, and the subject of the documentary, Calcutta is My Mother. And I know you've been on the podcast before sharing about those things, but where can people connect with you online to read Dear Adoption and to see more of your work and to find out more about your documentary?
Well, Dear Adoption is dearadoption.com, and we've been on a bit of a hiatus for some time, but there will be more at Dear Adoption. I think that Dear Adoption will forever be a thing, but there are going to be some breaks here and there, which I think is also really healthy. Dearadoption.com is a great place to go to listen to a wide variety of adoptee voices, Haley being one of them. Actually, you've been on twice. I think we have 2 on there from you, so
I think I do.
Yeah, I love them both. And the film, actually, we had to postpone our screening in Minneapolis last spring, but that screening is not canceled, just postponed, probably looking at 2021 at this point. And then hopefully soon after, the film will be released for streaming, available worldwide. So we will keep you posted on that, but thank you so much for bringing up my couple of little projects, and you're always so kind and generous with your promotion, and I appreciate it.
I'm eye rolling because you said little projects.
Well.
Okay. We know that Reshma is a force in adoptee land. So
thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for celebrating with me today. I have my balloons up here still, my mismatched balloons, and I'm really sad to hear that zero's not coming. I was really hoping for that.
I mean, I can still send you one, but
0 day, just to keep me humble. But anyway, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much, Reshma.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you back. On re-listening to our conversation, I feel like I did not express to you how shocked I felt that the show reached 500,000 downloads, and that each download represents a human person who most likely is an adopted person, some of whom have never heard from other adult adoptees on the impact adoption has had on them. And so they found the show, and that download counts as a person who was able to hear someone else who had an experience just like they did, and they felt that they were not alone. So thank you. Thank you for being one of those people who downloaded this episode and thought adoptee voices were so valuable that you really wanted to listen and hear part of the adoptee experience. So thank you for being a part of that. Also want to express my great thanks again to my monthly supporters. Without you guys, I don't know that this show would have reached this milestone and continued for 4 years as it has. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. If you want to join my supporters, and if you think Adoptees On is impactful, that is an amazing way to support the show. Adopteeson.com/partner has details of that. And like I was telling Reshma, there's the Adoptees Off Script podcast that's also weekly that I do for my Patreon supporters, and there's other things in there. But honestly, the best way and the free way to support the show is to tell just one other adopted person about the podcast. And Reshma was saying, oh my gosh, there's so many episodes, 155. Where would you get started? If you are sharing the show with someone, it's amazing if you show them how to download a podcast if they've never done it before. Pick your favorite app. I love Overcast. There's lots of free ones if you're on an Android. Download your favorite episode of the show, something that has really been meaningful to you, or if there's one that relates to your friend's experience that they might find value in, pick one of those. I really appreciate it, and I do think once someone has listened, then they scroll through and find what they're interested in. So I think that's really helpful. So sharing the show with one person is amazing. Another thing you can do is share the podcast on social media. Again, share an episode that you love and that you think your friends would love. And I'm so grateful because so many of you do that regularly. and I really, really appreciate that. So thank you so much for spreading adoptee voices all around the world to over 144 countries, 500,000 times. It's more than that by now. I just checked as I was editing. I just checked, and I'm at 507 or something already. So there's already another 7,000. It's just kind of snowballing, which is wild. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening. I love you. Your voice is valuable. Your story matters, and I wish I could hear each one of you share your story on the show. If you have listened this long, if you've made it to the end, I want you to know that I have opened up applications to be on the podcast. And I'm already receiving more than I could possibly interview. But I know that you've listened all the way to the end of this show, that you are excited about Adoptees On, and maybe you want to share your story. So if you go to adopteeson.com and you go to the Connect page, there's instructions there on how to apply to be on the show. It includes recording yourself, a little message about what you would want to say to adoptees, share a little bit of your story with me, why you think you'd be a good fit for the podcast, and who knows, maybe you'll be on the next episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Let's talk again next Friday.